Hi, I love you, and a cop, dush, bang, throw her away. Sometimes they overreact.
For years, people painted Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison as the ultimate wild duo of the 60s, two untamed souls destined to set the world on fire. But the real story? It couldn't have been further from that dream. Janis couldn't stand him so much that her friends avoided even mentioning his name around her. It all began with one crazy night, an unplanned run-in that flipped everything upside down. From that moment on, these two rock legends became sworn enemies, and no sorry or forgiveness ever came their way. So what really went down between them? Brace yourself, because this story will blow your mind. Back in early 1968, before the rumors and chaos twisted their legacies together, Janis actually had a bit of admiration for Morrison. At that time, she was still rocking the stage with Big Brother and the Holding Company, flying between San Francisco and Los Angeles for summer gigs. During the legendary KFRC Fantasy Fair, she stood backstage and watched Morrison take over the crowd with that wild, unpredictable energy, something she hadn't seen before. Leaning toward another musician, she whispered, "He's out of his mind, but he's good." That moment sparked a strange curiosity inside her, something raw, maybe even a little dangerous. Just a few weeks later, fate threw them together again at a private Laurel Canyon get-together. This was the first real moment they talked face to face. The night kicked off simple enough, chatting about blues influences, the exhaustion of endless performances, and how the industry boxed them into roles they never asked for. No one in that room could have guessed that conversation was about to set off one of rock's most infamous rivalries. Janis didn't expect what she saw that night. Jim Morrison wasn't the wild man the rumors painted him to be. Sober and calm, he spoke softly, listened carefully, and didn't interrupt once. It threw her off completely. Later, she told a friend, half laughing, half surprised, "I didn't expect him to be polite." Coming from Janis, that was no small compliment. In those first few encounters, nothing suggested she'd one day loathe him. In fact, when Morrison praised her fiery Monterey Pop Festival performance replay from earlier that year, Janis turned red and cracked a playful joke. She said she'd steal his audience if he didn't keep up. Morrison laughed and shot back, saying he doubted anyone could out-scream her. For a brief shining moment, they were on the same wavelength, two electric forces vibing in perfect rhythm. Producer Paul Rothchild, who had worked closely with both Janis and The Doors, caught wind of this rare chemistry. He saw the sparks and became convinced they were destined to make something powerful together. Late that August in 1968, he told Janis he wanted to bring them together again, but this time somewhere quiet, somewhere they could actually talk without the noise of Laurel Canyon's chaos drowning them out. Janis didn't hesitate for a second. She said yes. That simple decision, made on impulse and pure curiosity, would set off a chain reaction she never saw coming. She walked into that planned meeting with a mix of excitement and respect, thinking Morrison was unpredictable yet brilliant, damaged yet fascinating, someone she could challenge, laugh with, maybe even create something legendary alongside. She had no idea what was waiting on the other side of that night. Janis had no clue that the next time she saw Jim Morrison, everything would flip upside down. Admiration would twist into pure shock, and that shock would burn into a hatred so deep she'd never let it go. The night it all fell apart began on September 13, 1968. The meeting producer Paul Rothchild had carefully arranged. It took place inside a secluded Hollywood Hills house where musicians often hid out to escape the madness of the city. The sun hadn't even set yet when Janis pulled up, expecting an easy, chill evening, some conversation, maybe a little music, and definitely nothing that would haunt her for years. Inside, the vibe was calm, almost peaceful. Morrison stood near the back door, leaning against a post with a glass of wine that barely looked touched. Janis spotted him right away and cracked a small tease about how well-behaved he was being. Morrison smirked, raised the glass, and said he was saving the wild part for later. She laughed, thinking it was just another one of his showman lines. For the first hour, everything seemed fine, surprisingly fine. The two sat across the same table, trading thoughts the way true artists do. They talked about blues phrasing, about Janis's deep love for Bessie Smith, and about how Morrison felt trapped by the Lizard King image fans had glued onto him. It was the kind of real, unguarded talk Rothchild had dreamed of capturing. Raw, creative, human. But then, something changed. The room started buzzing louder, the light dimmed, and Morrison's untouched wine turned into bourbon. His mood flipped fast, his charm melted into chaos. He slid his chair closer to Janis, his words growing heavier, slower, slipping into strange slurred provocations. That gentle, thoughtful man from earlier disappeared completely, replaced by someone bold and reckless, a side of Morrison Janice instantly recognized and instantly despised. Janice tried to play it cool, using her usual weapon, humor. Whenever a guy got too pushy, she'd joke her way out of it. So she laughed lightly and said she needed some fresh air, standing up and heading for the sliding door. But Morrison wasn't letting it go. His shadow stretched across the floor as he followed her, his steps heavy, determined. By the time she reached the porch, he'd already blocked her path, planting himself between her and the exit. He leaned in close, his voice low near her ear, pushing her to match his energy. Janice didn't bite. She kept her cool, slid to the side, and reached for the handle. With a voice calm enough to hide her discomfort, she said she needed a break and slipped outside. The second she hit the cool night air, she took a deep breath, her chest tight, her mind racing. She made a beeline straight for her old station wagon parked under a big sycamore tree. She opened the driver's door fast, ready to leave before things spiraled, but Morrison wasn't done. He staggered after her, calling her name, his words slurred with a strange mix of charm and arrogance. Janice slid into the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel like her life depended on it. And then it happened. The moment that changed everything. Morrison lurched toward the car, reached through the open window and yanked a handful of her hair so hard her whole body twisted sideways. The sound she let out wasn't fear, it was disbelief. Total shock that anyone, especially someone she'd admired just hours earlier, would ever cross that line. Her response came quick, instinctive, fierce, and unforgettable. Janice didn't even think her instincts just took over. Her hand shot toward the empty bottle sitting on the passenger seat, and before anyone could blink, she swung. The glass shattered against Morrison's temple with a sharp crack that cut through the night. He dropped hard into the dirt, stunned, eyes half open, completely dazed. Blood trickled from his brow, mixing with spilled liquor and dust on the ground. It was chaos in slow motion. Janice didn't stop to see what anyone else would do. She slammed the car door shut, fired up the engine, and tore out of that driveway, gravel flying everywhere. Her tires screamed against the dirt as she sped down the hill, heart pounding, rage and disbelief crashing together inside her chest. Back inside, silence swallowed the house. The few people who'd seen it happen stood frozen, unable to believe what just went down. Not because Janice had defended herself, but because Morrison's behavior had exposed a darker side of him few had ever dared to speak about. That night wasn't just an ugly scene, it was the beginning of a lifelong grudge, a scar that would never fade for Janice. She thought it was all behind her once she escaped that Hidden Hills nightmare, but the real sting came the very next morning. While Janice spent the day furious and shaken, replaying the moment in her mind, Morrison showed up at the Doors' rehearsal studio on Santa Monica Boulevard like nothing happened. He touched the bruise on his temple, let out a laugh in front of his bandmates, and threw out a line so twisted it would reach Janice like a slap to the face. "She's wild. I think she likes me." That single sentence cut deeper than the pain of what he'd done. It showed her something far colder than violence. It revealed that to him, it had all been a game, while for her, it was a wound she'd carry forever. Morrison didn't just cross boundaries. He rewrote them. In his mind, every story flipped until he was the victim, the charmer or the misunderstood hero. Janice had met men like that back home, the kind who could twist a woman's fear into their own fantasy, who thought resistance made the tale more thrilling. And that's exactly where her hatred began. Burning slow but burning deep. Within a week, the rumors started spreading like wildfire. At a recording studio on La Cienega, someone mentioned Morrison had been bragging that Janice lost control from excitement. Another musician repeated a new version that she'd smashed the bottle because she couldn't handle the chemistry. Each retelling made her sound hysterical or obsessed, twisting reality into a joke at her expense. Morrison had stolen the truth of that night and turned it into his own kind of entertainment, reshaping it for laughs and ego. The worst hit came later that year during the band's East Coast run, at a New York hotspot known as The Scene. Janice walked in with a few friends after performing at the Fillmore East, just trying to unwind, but what she heard froze her in her tracks. Right across the room, Morrison was holding court, acting out the bottle scene like some slapstick skit. He waved his arms, mimicked her swing, and had the crowd half laughing, half confused. Then he spotted her. Without missing a beat, he raised his drink toward her and gave that smug little smirk, the kind that said he knew exactly what he was doing. Janice didn't say a word. She just stood there for a second, her jaw tight, then turned and walked out into the cold New York night. That was the final nail in the coffin. In that moment, she realized Morrison wasn't dangerous because of his temper. He was dangerous because he could twist cruelty into charm and make the world cheer him for it. He was dangerous because he truly believed the world owed him the power to rewrite any woman's story, even if it destroyed her in the process. From that moment on, Janice didn't just avoid him, she despised him with a cold, unwavering clarity that never faded. Months later, when their paths crossed backstage at a festival, she refused to even glance his way. After that humiliation at the Scene nightclub, there was no fixing anything. Janice cut Morrison out of her life with surgical precision. No contact, no second chances, no more fuel for his twisted tales. If she caught wind that he'd be at the same event, she changed her route. If a journalist brought up the doors, she gave a polite nod and moved on, refusing to feed the story. She wouldn't give him another chance to rewrite her truth. What people didn't see was that Janice wasn't someone who hated easily. She forgave faster than most. She could shrug off insults, laugh through gossip, and move past almost anything. But this was different. Morrison hadn't just crossed a line, he'd torn it apart. He took something that scared her, reshaped it into a fantasy, and turned it into a performance for laughs. That betrayal cut deeper than any argument or outburst ever could. It wasn't just about ego, it was about erasing her truth in front of the world. And that was the one thing Janis Joplin would never forgive. Ironically, both stars only grew brighter as the months rolled on, their fame exploding even as their paths kept colliding. At the Texas International Pop Festival in 1969, fate threw them into the same orbit again. Morrison showed up backstage just minutes before Janis arrived. Someone joked that they should say hi like old friends, but nobody realized there was no such thing as friendly between those two anymore. Janis didn't say a word. She just walked straight past him, eyes locked forward, face completely unreadable. That silent move hit harder than any argument or public scene ever could. It was pure power. No drama, no yelling, just ice-cold finality. There was never a reconciliation after that, no apology, no late-night call, no final talk to clear the air. When Janis died in October 1970, Morrison was said to be shaken, stunned into quiet disbelief. But even then, he never took back the stories he'd spread. He never told the truth about what really happened that night. The silence spoke volumes. It was like he couldn't face the reality of what he'd done, or maybe he just didn't want to give up the legend he'd built around himself. 9 months later, Morrison was gone too, leaving behind fame, music, chaos, and a feud that never found closure. The tension between them stayed frozen in time, tangled forever in rumor and regret. Now that the truth is finally out, it makes you wonder, what do you think really happened that night? Did Janis do what anyone else would have done to protect themselves? Or was the industry too busy idolizing Morrison to see the damage hiding behind the spotlight? Even decades later, that night still echoes through rock history like a ghost that refuses to fade. Fans still argue about what really went down between Janis and Morrison. Was it passion gone wrong, or a brutal clash of egos that spiraled out of control? Every interview, every biography, every whispered story keeps adding another layer to the mystery. Some say Morrison regretted it in his final months, that he carried guilt he never spoke about. Others claim he brushed it off entirely, too wrapped up in his own myth to ever admit fault. And Janis, she never mentioned his name again, not once. Her silence became her statement, and in that silence, her truth lived louder than any headline. As the years passed, that story became more than just gossip. It turned into a symbol of how fame could twist people, how the industry turned pain into entertainment and tragedy into legend. Both of them were broken by the same spotlight they helped create, and their short, fiery lives became warnings for those who followed. Even now, their names still collide in documentaries, podcasts, and social threads, two icons forever linked by one unforgettable night. The world keeps asking the same question, chasing the same ghost. If that meeting had gone differently, could they have changed music together instead of destroying a piece of each other? Maybe we'll never know the full truth. But one thing's for sure, that night wasn't just a scandal. It was the moment two legends crossed paths, clashed like thunder, and left behind a story too wild for anyone to ever forget. Time has done nothing to dull the sting of that story. It still hits hard. Every generation rediscovers it and gasps, realizing how two of rock's greatest forces collided in a storm that neither of them survived long enough to escape. What started as a moment of curiosity turned into one of the most haunting rivalries in music history. For many, Janis represents the raw truth, the voice that refused to be silenced. Even when the world tried to twist her story, she was bold, emotional, and real, pouring her pain straight into her songs like they were confessions wrapped in rhythm. Her voice cracked open the world and made people feel something genuine in an era ruled by excess and ego. Morrison, on the other hand, became the symbol of chaos, charismatic, dangerous, and impossible to pin down. He lived like every moment was performance art, blurring the line between rebellion and destruction. But behind the mystery, there was a darkness that fame only fed, not healed. Their connection, brief, explosive, and tragic, still sparks debates in every corner of rock culture. Some fans see it as fate, others call it a warning. The danger of power when ego and vulnerability collide. And maybe that's the real legacy of their feud. It wasn't just about two musicians, but about how the spotlight can twist reality until no one remembers what was true anymore. Even now, when people play Piece of My Heart or Riders on the Storm, there's a strange chill in the air, as if their spirits still hover, forever locked in that unfinished story. One night, one clash, and two legends who burned too bright to ever fade quietly. Even now, decades after their final breaths, Janis and Morrison's names still stir up that same electric tension. It's like the universe never let their energy rest, two wild souls forever spinning in the same storm. Their story has become more than just rock history. It's a mirror reflecting the price of fame, ego, and unchecked myth-making. In every dusty backstage photo, every grainy recording, you can almost feel the weight of what never got said between them. The world remembers the chaos, but beneath it all was something even heavier, a clash between truth and illusion. Janis wanted honesty in her art, something real that spoke to pain and survival. Morrison wanted power through mystery, always hiding behind the legend he built. That collision was inevitable and devastating. It wasn't just two people fighting, it was two worlds colliding. The fearless versus the reckless, raw emotion versus blurred reality. And when that energy met, it didn't just spark, it exploded. Now, when fans talk about the 27 Club, their names always echo side by side. Both brilliant, both broken, both gone too soon. It's haunting how they became symbols of the same tragedy they once tried to outsing. Their feud, their fire, their silence, it all became part of the mythology that shaped rock itself. Maybe that's why their story still pulls people in. It's not just about what happened that night, but what it says about every artist who ever gave too much of themselves to the stage. Two legends, forever chasing freedom, forever bound by one unforgettable truth. They lived fast, burned bright, and left behind a legacy that still refuses to die. Every legend has an untold side, and for Janis and Morrison, that side still lingers like smoke after a fire. Behind all the fame, behind the chaos, were two people who wanted to be seen for who they really were, not just the wild images the world demanded. Fame didn't just lift them, it trapped them, twisting their pain into performance and their truth into rumor. Janis poured her heart out in every note, chasing real emotion in a world that only wanted spectacle. Morrison, meanwhile, blurred the line between art and madness, turning rebellion into theater until he couldn't tell where the act ended and the man began. They were both fighting the same machine, just from different corners of the stage. That's what makes their story so powerful even now. It's not just scandal, it's a lesson in how easily truth gets lost when fame takes control. One violent night became gossip, her pain became a punchline, his behavior became another rock and roll story, and through it all the world kept applauding. But if you strip away the myths, you see something raw. Two icons who got caught in the dark side of an era that worshipped chaos more than compassion. Maybe their feud wasn't just about anger, it was about what happens when two broken souls meet in the middle of a spotlight too bright to survive. Even today, when we hear their songs, it's like hearing two ghosts calling from opposite ends of the same dream. The truth between them might have died long ago, but their fire, it's still burning, louder than ever, daring the world to finally see what really happened behind the music. What makes their story hit so hard isn't just the drama, it's how real it still feels. Janis and Morrison weren't just stars, they were symbols of a generation that lived too fast, loved too hard, and broke under the weight of their own legends. Their feud wasn't about jealousy or fame, it was about two forces of nature clashing in a world that didn't know how to handle either of them. Janis came from struggle. She fought to be heard in a scene dominated by men who thought raw emotion made her too much. Morrison, on the other hand, had the stage handed to him, but the deeper he dove into his own myth, the more he lost control of it. When those worlds collided, it wasn't destiny, it was disaster waiting to happen. What's wild is how both of them carried the same kind of loneliness beneath all the noise. They were surrounded by people, but never really understood. Both chased meaning through music, and both ended up trapped by the very fame that was supposed to set them free. Even after all these years, their names are still spoken with awe and sadness, two voices silenced before they could ever find peace. The industry may have turned their pain into legend, but the truth cuts deeper than any headline ever could. When you listen to their songs now, you can almost feel the ghosts of that night, the tension, the heartbreak, the spark that never faded. Their story isn't just about one fight. It's about everything fame takes from those who give it everything they have. Two legends, one truth. Sometimes the brightest stars burn the most painfully before they fade. And that's where their story finally ends. Or maybe where it truly begins. Janis Joplin and Jim Morrison weren't just two rock legends. They were fire and gasoline, art and chaos, truth and illusion colliding in one unforgettable storm. Their feud wasn't just a scandal from the past. It was a reflection of everything that made that era both magical and destructive. Two souls too wild for the world they were born into. Two voices that still echo through time, reminding us how fragile genius can be. When you strip away the rumors and myths, what's left is raw humanity. Janis, searching for real love and honesty in her music, and Morrison, running from himself behind layers of rebellion and poetry. Their paths crossed for one explosive heartbeat, and the shockwaves still ripple through music history today. Maybe that's why people can't stop talking about them, because deep down their story isn't just about fame or fury. It's about how easily truth gets lost when the lights are too bright and the world is too loud. Their legend still burns because it speaks to something timeless, the beauty and the danger of living without limits. So, what do you think? Was Janis right to fight back that night? Did Morrison ever truly understand the damage he caused, or was he just another product of a culture that glamorized chaos? Drop your thoughts below. We want to hear what you think. And if this story blew your mind, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and comment to keep the truth of rock's wildest legends alive. There's more untold history where this came from, so stay tuned because we're just getting started.